So we're gonna record this session too. It'll be up on the website or wherever you get these sessions in the ether. So why don't we go around and can you guys introduce yourselves? Tell me where you're from, where you did undergrad, and then what your pathway to medicine was kind of like. And then if you're what degree program you're in, if you're an MSTP, bring that up. And then I want you to tell me about one passion, and it can be medical or non-medical, but just something that you're passionate about that you would like to share with everybody today. Um, Jessica, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Jessica. I'm a first year medical student. I'm from Honolulu, Hawaii, so quite a bit of ways from here. I went to undergrad at Santa Clara University. It's in Northern California, for those who know that area. And then, sorry, what else was there?
What did you come straight through undergrad? What did you do? How did you get
Oh,
to medicine?
yeah.
Everything is
So
fine.
I like wasn't really sure where in medicine I wanted to go, like MD versus other paths. And something that led me towards MD was taking 2 gap years where I worked as a medical scribe and I got more hands-on experience with like being in a clinic. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I ended up choosing medicine and being in Rochester. And something that I'm passionate about that's not medicine related is I'm really into cooking with an Instant Pot right now. So I've been collecting like a ton of different recipes. And for those who don't have one, I like highly recommend it. It's a game changer for me. So, but yeah.
I love that. It's efficiency is really important in medical school. Shalini, do you want to go next?
Sure. So my name is Shalini. I am also an MS1. Oh, you're good. You're good. You're so good. What do I have to say? I'm from Las Vegas. I went to undergrad at University of Rochester, where I graduated last year. So directly to medical school. And something I'm passionate about that I kind of realized once I got to medical school actually is wellness. So I am one of the wellness representatives, and I have had a lot of fun just organizing events and getting the class together.
Awesome, great, thank you. Simran, you want to go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Simran. I'm a first year MD student. I'm from Columbia, Maryland, and I went to Stanford University for my undergrad. During undergrad, I was kind of on the fence about going to medical school, but I spent a summer doing some global health research in India, and I was living with an emergency medicine doctor, and that's what really convinced me that this is what I wanted to do. So in my 2 gap years, I spent some time in India doing some global health work. And then for most of it, I did some clinical research in pediatric orthopedic surgery. And one of my passions is addressing healthcare disparities. So I've been pretty involved in the UR Well clinics and I've loved every minute of it.
That's awesome. I love that. William, you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Will. I grew up in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Did my undergrad at Brown and graduated in 2016. When I was there, I was really interested in research, and so I was kind of trying to figure out how much I wanted that to play a role in my career, and so I was kind of deciding, whether I wanted to apply to a PhD program. So I did some research at Stanford for a couple years. And applied to medical school, did not get in. And so I'm a reapplicant. So did a couple years of soul searching after that, and moved around a little bit, like lived in New York City, in Philly, and then eventually found my way up here. And if I'm not studying, I really like to spend my time outside. So in the winter, I do a lot of cross-country skiing, and I really, really love to mountain bike. So I'm excited for that season to come up right now.
Great. Yeah, there's great outdoor activities like that around here. Cross country specifically is really wonderful. Bianca, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Bianca Audrey Dua. I'm from New York City by way of Ghana and West Africa. I went to Brown like Will, and I graduated in 2016. I studied health and human biology, so I had an inclination towards medicine. But I think like most of the folks on the call, I just wanted to solidify and make sure that medicine and becoming a physician was really in line with what I wanted and my goals. And so I also did clinical research like Simran. I did HIV clinical research thinking that I was gonna do global infectious disease work. But it did solidify all in all my passion for medicine. In terms of my other passions, kind of taking the off track, I really like tea, and I feel like medical school has really like solidified my my love for tea and discovering different tea recipes and different milks to put into tea. So if you ever have questions about that, I have you.
I have so many questions, Bianca. I want to know all about the different milks and all about the different teas.
Gotcha.
We'll talk later. So you guys moved to Rochester in the middle of pandemic times. Our lovely times right now. It's really must have been really challenging to move to a new place. And I know that one of you went to undergrad here, so you had already a little bit of roots here. I wonder if maybe Shalini, you can talk a little bit about moving to Rochester in pandemic times, but then also maybe coming to some place that's a little bit less sunny than you're used to. I know that this is something that is like a real concern that people have legitimately. I don't know what your experience was.
Oh, it's so legit. I am from the West Coast, as I mentioned, and coming to Rochester was a huge transition, just weather-wise. But one of the things that I have found to be helpful is fully embracing the cold. We all know it's going to be cold coming here, and there's actually a lot of things to do. So this past year, a couple of friends and I have gone skiing, we've gone sledding, we've sat by the fire outside, just really embracing the cold and all it has to offer, even when it's a little bit dark and gloomy and studying is 24/7. But it's always fun to try something new. So that's been a great thing about coming to Rochester for sure.
You say go for it. Sorry, Simran.
I was just gonna say Shalini and Daniel, our wellness reps, like organized this sledding event for us, and it was absolutely incredible. So snow can be fun.
I second that as well, or third that, because I feel like with winters here, you kind of need to embrace it, like go and plan a snowball fight with your friends, or I saw videos of that sledding thing that you guys all did together, and it can be really fun, and if that's like what you make out of it. Or during the fall, like go check out all the leaves in Letchworth. So just embracing it and dressing warm.
Yes, it's key.
Yeah, I think anyone coming from a generally sunny place, you have to find all of the wonderful things about having 4 real seasons. And the fall is really wonderful. The spring is really wonderful. The winter is what you make of it. And the summer is just spectacular, right? We were talking about the Lilac Festival before we started. So you guys brought up 2 kind of themes, I think, of first year that are really challenging, which is studying all the time versus wellness. Which, like, I think every time I hear wellness, I'm like, but then it's also a real important aspect of everyone's, like, wellness means something different to everybody. What have you guys experienced? How have you been able to balance that transition into having all of this studying time with the wellness, and then also creating like community and friendships, even though COVID is going on, and you have all these different pressures from different sides? Anyone can take that one to start.
I can start. I just want to kind of counter something you said just briefly. So I think that instead of saying that we're trying to, there's like a versus between like wellness and studying, I think in an ideal world, and I definitely think it's attainable, like being able to meld the two, and whatever that looks like, even in the midst of a pandemic, right? Like when you're studying, like carving out a certain amount of time to devote to reviewing your notes or doing flashcards or watching Sketchy or whatever, and then like saying like I'm gonna take a walk, right? Like in the midst of me, studying, or I could take my phone with me and like do Anki if that's what you're into, like while you're walking. And I say that because I think that when I first started, it was kind of like 24/7, like no sleep, just going ham, and like you burn out so quickly. But I think once you recognize that like your wellness like has such a positive impact on your like academics, like you won't even like try to put that to the side. It becomes integral to like your overall success. And so I think like for me, I know that I like am a homebody. I could be in my room all day, but there are also moments where I want to like be around people. And so I make it a point to like text some of my friends and say, hey, can we do some like silent studying and, a PBL or something? And like that fills my soul, and it makes it easier for me to, succeed academically. So, yeah.
Yeah,
I want to
go for it.
Sorry. I was just going to echo what Bianca said. In terms of mixing different passions and different ways of wellness, it really depends on the person. So for me, it's been exploring Rochester, and even having been here for 4 years, I still find myself going to a new restaurant on the weekends and hanging out with my friends, and that's something that I can do at the same time. So it works perfectly where I am able to take some time off and really just enjoy the presence of some other people and have a conversation that's not science focused all the time. And that's really valuable, just kind of getting outside and doing something different.
Yeah, I think that's really true. What do you guys think has been, and maybe Jessica, you can lead us off. What do you think's been the hardest part of this year of first year of medical school?
I think, well, I mean, the curriculum itself is pretty challenging, and I think it's been hard, especially with the pandemic, of not being able to really see people face to face unless you make that extra effort, because we aren't in case method every day, like socializing with our friends right before, the 5 minutes before lecture starts. So like finding ways to make connections with people during the pandemic while you're in med school was really challenging, but I feel like our class has done a pretty terrific job on, trying to find ways of connecting with people.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, I think, like what you said, Jessica, being intentional about when you spend time and how you spend time and who you spend that time with is like so important. And I think for me, like coming into school, I was sort of a type B person. Like I didn't like to schedule my day out. I never used a calendar, but that's something that I've kind of forced myself to do and has radically improved my life. And I feel like has allowed me to like create more time for myself. So I think I would encourage that. Big plug for that.
Yeah, I think you can get really intense about scheduling, but it really helps to have an idea of how much time you're going to commit to something, and then balancing that with what you also like need. So self-knowledge is really important. Is there something that you guys wish that you had known before going through the transition into first year? Maybe Simran, you can start us off here.
I think something that I had to learn during the first year was that there was no way I was going to know everything that we kind of covered in class or in our material. And that, not to kind of put that pressure on myself to like make sure I knew everything. So just being okay with knowing what you know, because I think the bigger idea is you're learning how to be a lifelong learner here in medical school, because medicine is going to change throughout your career, throughout your lifetime. So what you learn now might not be completely accurate later when you're actually taking care of patients. So it's really not about making sure you have every single fact down. It's making sure you kind of understand the general concepts and are able to apply them on a larger scale.
Awesome. I have a question from the chat, which is a great question. Maybe Will, you could take this. What is a typical day like as an M1?
Sure. I think that changes a lot depending on the class that we're in. So when we start the first year, we start with human structure and function, which I am pretty confident you all have heard about at some point already. And it's pretty intensive and it's pretty heavily scheduled, which is actually, I think, a really good thing, and kind of like reinforces the curriculum that you're learning. But generally, so when you start, it's generally lecture until noon, and then there's anatomy labs in the afternoon. Sometimes anatomy labs are in the morning as well, but generally there's about 4 hours of lecture, and then there's a couple protected afternoons where there's just sort of free study time, personal time. And then about 3 days a week, we have some kind of like anatomy lab, or there's also ICM, Intro to Clinical Medicine, and that is sort of continuous throughout the first semester of school. And that happens in the afternoon as well. And that's where we interview standardized patients and get some group time. So I think there's a pretty good mix, especially in HSF, of in-person components and kind of online learning that happens. So you're kind of in and out of the hospital as you see fit for that. I don't know if that answers the question, but
no, that was a great answer to the question. And I had another question, which is how often do you guys test it? How often do you guys take exams in the first year?
I think it's generally you guys see if you agree with this, like 2 to 3 weeks, there's some kind of test.
Yeah, I think that's true throughout first and second year. And then in third year, things get a little bit more spaced out because it's by each clerkship, which is a nice break from the multiple choice questions, though they never go away. So we're kind of coming towards the end of kind of this part of the session with the first year students. I know that the summer between first and second year is kind of like the summer of medical school where you get to choose what you want to do. What do you guys have planned for the summer this year coming up? And maybe we can start with Jessica.
Yeah, so at least for me, it was really hard being away from home. So I'm actually going home for the summer and hopefully working with a physician on a project because, yeah, just that balance of like work and, play, I guess, in that sense. So that's what I'm hoping.
Awesome. How about you, Simran?
I will be here enjoying my first beautiful summer in Rochester, hopefully attending the Lilac Festival. But I'm going to be working on a clinical trial with the physician in the Department of Dermatology, looking at a new treatment for discoid lupus erythematosus. I'm really excited to get started.
Very cool. Bianca?
I'm also going to be here taking in the sun and getting my vitamin D. I'll be doing some oncology work and some orthopedic surgery work for the summer.
Very cool. Shalini?
So I am fully taking advantage of Zoom and I am going home, but I will be doing a research project here in the Department of Radiology. And I'm excited to work remotely.
Awesome. And Will?
I will also be in Rochester. I have a partner who's going into her third year here, and she's starting with surgery. So I'm gonna be doing a lot of, I think, emotional support at the beginning of the summer. And I'm also working on a project in the radiology department, studying pocket ultrasounds for diagnosis of palpable breast masses.
Very cool. That's super exciting. Yeah, do the cooking. I think that will be appreciated.
A lot of that.
We have time for a couple, at least one more question from you guys. You guys brought up ICM in the first year. And I know the first semester is more standardized patients, but now that you've gotten into the second semester, can you talk about what the clinical thread of the training has been like throughout first year? Maybe Bianca, you want to lead us off?
Sure. So we ease our way in with ICM. So we are seeing standardized patients once a week, actually. And I think it's a really good primer just to have the space amongst your classmates and a really confident and trustworthy preceptor who you can just literally struggle with and learn how to talk to patients, know what questions to ask, know how to fumble through the physical exam. And then we enter FBP, which is like Foundations of Clinical
Biopsychosocial Practice.
Biopsychosocial Practice. Thank you. There's so many acronyms y'all will soon learn. And I think that's when we kind of dive in a little bit deeper into actually seeing patients. So in an ideal world, pre-COVID, you would be going to a geriatric, a nursing home or something of the sort, and learning how to interview and do a physical exam on geriatric patients. And then we go to rehab on the floors, which we still do, and interview patients. They literally just throw us in the room and, you learn how to talk to folks. But it's actually really interesting, and I actually enjoyed it because I felt like I had to know what I was doing. And then we also have sessions that pertain to things like counseling things. So learning how to talk to people about alcohol cessation, learning how to talk to people about smoking and things of that sort, and navigating that. Because it's not just checking someone's blood pressure, it's knowing how to counsel people. And so I think they do a really good job of balancing all of those things.
Yeah, and I think the thread through all of that is that it doesn't really matter if we choose the right medicine or the right prescription if we didn't connect with the patient enough that they're going to trust us to follow the plan that we've agreed upon, right? Anyone else have any other thoughts about the clinical education in the first year, what you guys have learned, how you've grown?
I would just add that coming in, I was not incredibly excited about talking to standardized patients, but I just could not have been more wrong about how useful it is and how much you can learn from that process. So I think I took it for granted a little bit, but it is surprisingly hard just to walk in and introduce yourself to someone in a professional, but also warm and inviting and kind of relationship building way. So I think practicing that in a controlled setting, like Bianca was saying, is incredibly valuable. So yeah, I think a lot of people will find that as well.
yeah, everyone's got to find their own words, right? And it's much easier to do it in front of an SP than in front of a real patient. Awesome. I think that this is the time that we have for the M1s. Do you guys have any advice that you want to leave with the applicants? Leave the applicants with, is the correct way to say that?
I would say, like when you start med school, don't be afraid to ask for help, because the professors here, they really want to help you. And not only that, but like the upperclassmen too. Like whenever I've met an upperclassman, they're always telling me like, hey, like this is my email, reach out to me if you have any questions, or if you like just want to chat, because there are a lot of people in this community that really want to just see you thrive. So that's my advice.
And stay in touch with friends and family. I think it's incredibly important, and it can be something hard to remember sometimes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate taking your time out. Congratulations for getting through your first exam in host defense yesterday, I think, right?
Tomorrow, I mean Monday.
Oh, it's
It's
Monday. Never
fine.
mind. I'm sorry. Good luck. Good luck. Go study the bacteria.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys. I think we're going to move on to the second years now. And are they on? They are. My goodness. This is great. So we have Riva, Dalton, Andrew, and Camille, I believe. So I had the way this was working, guys, if you didn't hear, is I will try and remember to pose a question to one of you specifically. And then anybody else can jump in and continue answering. And totally, if I start saying you cut me off, you keep talking. I'm not talking. You guys are. And then there are questions in the chat that are coming through, and I'll try and bring them up if they seem relevant right now, or we'll make sure that they're answered by the end of the session as well. So welcome, guys. Thanks so much for coming. I was going to have you guys give your name, where you're from, where you did undergrad, what your pathway to medicine was like, and then what your passion is. So if you have some sort of passion, it could be medical or non-medical, anything, just some passion that you want to share with the group. And if you're an MSTP, bring that up just so that we know what's going on. So why don't we start with Dalton?
Hi, everyone. My name's Dalton. I'm originally from Akwesasne, which is a Mohawk reservation on the border of Canada and New York State. I did my undergrad at Columbia University, and then I worked for a number of years and did a post-bac program at the U of R River campus before coming here. And I'm really passionate about eating good food. I will go out of my way to find the best food.
Yeah, I love that. Riva, do you want to go next?
Sure. My name is Reva. I'm originally from California, and I went to undergrad at the University of Rochester, so I've been here for a minute. I did Fulbright in between undergrad and coming to med school, so I got a little bit of break in between. I'm passionate about, I'll do two things: dark chocolate for a fun thing, and like another fun thing is skin of color research. I've been really involved with that the past couple of years in skin of color clinics. So that's something that I want to keep going forward with.
Awesome. Thank you, Riva. Andrew, do you want to go next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew. I'm from New York City. I also did undergrad here at U of R, so I've been here for a very similar amount of time as Reva. I came straight from undergrad to med school. I did take a semester off to work as an EMT in the city of Rochester. Something I'm passionate about is kind of maintaining a good work-life balance and trying to figure out how to do that as a future physician.
Yeah, that's definitely an important challenge for all of us. Camille, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Camille. I'm originally from a small town in Massachusetts. I did my undergrad at the University of Chicago, and then I spent 2 years doing clinical research in rare neurological diseases, which kind of tied together a passion that brought me to medicine, which was working with individuals with disabilities, kind of along with trying to explore that from a research angle. And then I guess my fun passion is crafting and just like kind of making fun things for around the house that I share with my roommates.
Oh, I love that. That's so much fun. Great. So We just finished with the first year or the first phase students, and you guys are now coming towards the end. You're kind of in the heyday of your step studying. I kind of want you to take yourself back a year to the beginning of second year, and we just talked a little bit about the research experiences that they're going to be doing this summer. I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about what you did with the summers in between your first and second years. And kind of maybe if that's informed some of the ways that you've chosen to find mentors or do research throughout this year. Dalton, do you want to start?
Sure. So to go all the way back, before first year, you should like relax and chill as much as you can and do everything you love. To build up all of that reserve, like energy and grit that you're gonna need in the year after. And in between first and second year, I worked in Dr. Jonathan Leckenby's lab. It's a plastic surgery lab, doing some mouse model research on nerve regeneration, which was really cool. And since has given me an entry into working on a few different clinical and basic science projects in the department.
Awesome. Didn't you also do something else in that summer? Did you do surf instead?
I also, I was the program coordinator for one of our pipeline programs, the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship. So myself and my classmate Brittany had 12 research fellows who we taught anatomy. We adapted our in-person anatomy lab experience to be virtual for them, and then helped them develop projects with faculty PI.
Super cool. I bring it up because I am partial because I also ran surf after my first year and absolutely loved it. Awesome. Reva, do you want to go next? What did you do over that summer?
Sure. So I actually was home, which was nice for summer. I ended up finding a mentor in California. And actually, the way I found this mentor was super lucky. So I don't know if the first years talked about this, but we have like this Big Little program for the first and second years. So we get matched with a second year in your first year that basically they try to match you on your interests and whether that be personal interests or medical interests. So my big is actually also interested in skin of color research, and he was able to link me to this mentor. And I was able to reach out to him, and it was super nice, and it ended up working out really well. And I've been working with him since second year. So I would definitely recommend you reaching out to upperclassmen because they have all the advice, even at our own institution. He's given me some advice about people to reach out to. And then in addition to that, I also am in RSA. So I did some tutoring with some of the Refugee Student Alliance. So it's basically some students who are involved with that program. And you basically do some after school tutoring on Saturdays and Sundays. So I was able to do that via Zoom.
Oh, that's really cool. Andrew, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. So I kind of going back before med school, I did some research in the infectious disease department here at U of R, and I hated bench research, and I knew I never wanted to touch it again with like 100-foot stick. So for the summer after first year, I did the UR summer internship where you kind of learn how to run the UR clinics, which are our free clinics for underserved and underinsured populations here in the city of Rochester. So I spent my summer learning how to operate those clinics as well as working at one of our clinical sites, St. Joseph's Neighborhood Center. It was really good practice for PCC, and I got to learn how to do a physical exam and present and write a note even before PCC started. And I also worked on some clinical research with the Department of Emergency Medicine, which I found through contacting the emergency medicine program director here at U of R, and he hooked me up with someone in my interest.
Awesome. Camille?
Yeah, so I caught the end of the first year session, and I know one of the first years mentioned it being really important to kind of go home and spend time with family that summer. And that was absolutely a priority for me. So I actually had planned to go back home and continue doing a new research project with the research group I had done my gap years with while living at home and kind of spending some time with family. Then, of course, with COVID, I ended up, physically doing it here and doing it remotely. But, one thing I do want to mention about that process is, one, the U of R makes it really easy to even get funding to do research at another institution. So again, it was important to me to go home, but I was still able to get summer funding through the school for that. And the second is that as part of that application process, if you're doing outside research, they ask you to identify a U of R mentor just to kind of have someone to go to if you run into any issues. And I, was just kind of overwhelmed with the whole thing and definitely procrastinated reaching out to someone here. And there was the name of one person who I'd kind of looked up to. I knew about some of his work. And I emailed him and just basically asked, like, I just need someone to sign this paper and say they're my mentor. I don't need you to do anything else. That's it. And he responded instantly. He wanted to meet up. He heard all about my project. And he said to me, the one thing you should know about me is I don't like to be a mentor in name only. And so even doing a project, at another institution, I, through that experience, developed this incredible mentor here who continues to be an amazing support to me as I kind of follow, career exploration.
Yeah, I love that. You guys really kind of displayed the diversity of things that people can do with that summer. And all of those things are awesome, right? Because they were formative experiences for you from a learning standpoint. But you're also people are going to look at that experience and see a person that has a real interest and zest for the world, regardless of what that activity was, kind of hardcore research versus teaching versus something else. I wonder, you guys talked a little bit about some of the extracurriculars that you've been involved in. Usually at the U of R, you guys are the ones that lead our student groups because you're the ones with a little bit, I don't know why we think this, more time than other classes. It makes no sense. Can you guys tell me a little bit about the extracurriculars you've been involved in and some of the student groups? I know you guys mentioned URWell and a couple other ones. Maybe Andrew, do you want to start?
Sure. So I mentioned URWell. So I'm one of the leaders of one of our URWell clinics. We operate clinic every Tuesday night, operating specialties and primary care to underinsured patients through St. Joseph's Neighborhood Center. I also am involved with the emergency medicine interest group. So a bunch of students who are interested in emergency medicine, we run monthly case studies and procedural experiences. So med students can go into the ED and just place IVs and do procedures, and class council.
Oh, yes, politics. Love it. Anyone else or anyone jump in if you led an activity that was meaningful this year that you want to talk about?
I can jump in. Andrew's actually also a part of this. We're both a part of a PAMSA, which is the Asian American Pacific Students Association. So we led a couple of events this year, especially a couple of healing circles given recent events, and just a couple of fun events for everyone to do socially distance and feel some community. We try to focus a lot on our first years because we know that they kind of had more barriers to adjusting than we did. And like I talked about earlier, I'm also a part of the Refugee Student Alliance. And then I volunteered at Street Outreach, which I'm sure Camille knows a lot more than I do about that, but that's also an awesome program.
I can talk about Street Outreach briefly. So Street Outreach is an outreach organization in some ways similar to URWell. So essentially we go out on rounds, depending on the time of year, 2 to 3 times a week, and go to different places where we know that people who are homeless tend to aggregate. So there's a couple of different encampments, different homeless shelters, and community organizations. And essentially we go out with a team of medical students, nursing students, and a social work student. And our goal there, isn't primarily to provide medical care because we're all, still health students, but more so to increase health literacy and help connect people to different healthcare resources. So we do a lot of education. It's a really great opportunity to kind of practice some of the counseling skills that we're learning, in intro to clinical medicine and those other courses you heard about. But I don't know, it's a pretty incredible opportunity to learn about all of the, community support organizations that are available in Rochester, and also really, start to understand the barriers that a lot of our patients are facing as well.
Dalton, you've done some things this year as well, right? Is that true?
Yeah, so I am, one of my big passions is teaching and mentorship. As someone who came from a reservation and knowing like nobody who ever went to medical school, it's really important to me to kind of use my privilege as a current medical student to help recruit and cultivate learners at different stages. And so over the summer, I worked with undergrads in SURF. I'm a mentor in the pre-doc program, which is a partnership we have with the undergraduate campus to mentor URM students. And then I also this year ran Academic Step, which is unlike the looming board exam that we're gonna take, like it's not that, it's the Science and Technology Entry Program. And we bring in about 20 high school students who are interested in the health professions and build a curriculum around medical ethics, research basics, and exposure to clinical career options. And so all of that has been super rewarding because I get to connect with like really bright, really energetic, up and coming future physicians.
Cool. That's really cool. So second year is interesting. It's really information dense, and I think for at least for me in my life, I can only stand 2 years of school until I'm over it, and so the end of it gets really challenging. And Dalton, you brought up the looming step one situation for you all. How have you guys seen your like study habits and the way that you approach information change throughout second year? And how do you feel going into this kind of, I don't know, hermit study time? Sorry, Camille, why don't you start?
Sure. So I think one thing that's been a learning experience for me has been appreciating the importance of connecting everything I'm learning to a bigger picture. Looking back, I think something that I struggled with, especially the beginning of first year, in the transition, even though I took a couple years off in the transition from undergrad to med school, was that, I was so used to this idea of learning something for a test. And, maybe it was a course that was just sort of required for my major or, required for a core requirement or whatever. And I had to constantly remind myself, like, I'm not just learning this for a test. I'm learning this to take care of patients. I'm learning this to be able to there's so much of a bigger picture here. And I think that does actually get easier the farther you go on. Because as you get to second year, I think Andrew mentioned in the chat, primary care clerkship, you're interacting with and caring for real patients. And so it's so much easier to like learn and really internalize the disease process when you're seeing the life it affects in front of you. But if I could give myself one piece of advice for the beginning of first year, it would be to just always remind yourself of that it's not just for a test, and you need to remember it after the test is over too.
Yeah, it's real. The knowledge is important to have because people are gonna live or die based on whether you remember how to interpret those labs, right? Okay, I think we have time for one more question, and I just want to do a quick around for all of you guys, and I will indoctrinate you into third year by asking, what do you want to do? Have you decided what type of doctor you want to be? I'm joking. What rotation are you most excited about for third year? What are you looking forward to the most in the next year? And just some quick answers would be great because we're going to move on in a sec. So Reva, do you want to start for us?
Sure. I'm really excited about my medical oncology elective that I'm going to be taking. That was something I didn't expect to have an interest in, but really developed this past year. So I'm really excited to just do that and explore that.
Cool. Andrew?
I got lucky and I got emergency medicine during my third year, and it's possibly what I want to do for the rest of my life. And it's a 4-week clerkship, so I'm excited for that.
Yes, one of those scheduled tracks. It's very exciting. Dalton?
So I have narrowed it down to like surgery or pediatrics or neuro. So like, really narrow field, right? But I'm really excited for OB because I've never experienced that. And it's so new to me. And I'm so excited to like see what it's like.
I love that. It was a magical experience, Dalton. You're going to love it. Camille?
Yeah, so I'm interested in going into child neurology right now. So I'm especially excited for my neurology clerkship. I think a lot of that stems from a really incredible class at the beginning of second year called Mind, Brain, and Behavior, which really like reinforces the basics and just how to take a neurological exam and sort of localize where the lesion is. And I really love that problem solving aspect of it. So I'm looking forward to that a lot.
I'm in neuro right now. It's really cool. It's a very cool clerkship. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for being with us. I really appreciate you taking the time. Good luck. Go study. 100 questions for today or something. So we're gonna move on to the third year, I am a third year, and we have some wonderful members of my class joining us, which is really exciting. I think we have Emily, Philip, Spencer, and Mariah. Are they here?
Yeah, they're all here.
Awesome, great. I'm just going to talk before I can see them. So, guys, what we've been doing is having I will try and pose my question to one of the specific panelists, and then the rest of you guys can just jump in after they're finished answering if you have other things to add or other thoughts. Otherwise, people are putting questions in the chat, and it's getting piped to me by some unknown mechanism. So I'll try and pose those to you, or we'll at least cover them sometime before the end of the schedule. Hey guys, you guys look like you rounded this morning or something like that. Emily, do you want to start by introducing yourself? And what we're doing is name where you're from, where you went to undergrad, what your pathway to medicine was like. And then I want to share something that you're passionate about. And it can be something medical or it can be something non-medical.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Emily. I'm originally from New Jersey, the New York City area. And I did my undergrad here at Rochester, and I went straight through to med school. And something that I'm passionate about is art, both appreciating and creating art. So I've been involved with things of that nature throughout med school, too.
No, I know it. Emily. Philip, do you want to go next?
Sure. I hate to do this, Christian, but do you mind refresh my memory? I just came from the ED shift, so my mind is a little bit all over the place. So it's just where I'm from, something I'm interested in. Is that the basis? So
you got the first and the last, bro. Yeah. Where you're from, where you went to undergrad, how you got to medical school, and then what you're passionate about.
Okay, sure. Yeah, this is third year. You're always getting thrown into things. So
I love you.
Part of the experience, right? So I'm Philip from the Bronx, New York City. I went to college in Manhattan at Hunter College. What I'm passionate about is I love basketball. I love watching basketball. I love fantasy basketball. I love biking. I bike around Rochester a lot. So I'm a pretty active guy. Honestly, it's been an interesting story how I got to Rochester. It's a long story. So if anyone wants to ask me, you can ask me, but I always just say I'm happy to be here and I'm lucky to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Spencer, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Spencer. I'm from California and also Taiwan. I went to undergrad at UC San Diego. And my path to Rochester, I feel like I can talk forever about that. I took 6 years off, did a number of things, including different types of research, community organizing, a lot of community-based work. And passion, this is something kind of new since starting medical school. I found myself to be really drawn to the field of social medicine and liberation theology, and have really tried to kind of bring that with me throughout my medical school life.
That's awesome. So I will say at this moment that Spencer and I were once in a medical humanities seminar together and just had some really, really interesting, wonderful conversations about the intersection of philosophy and medicine. We watched a bunch of movies. It was a really cool course. I'm very happy to be at school with you guys. Mariah, do you want to go next?
Sure, I'm Mariah. I am originally from Northern California by way of Seattle. I went to Brown for undergrad and then spent about a decade as a clinical social worker before coming to med school, doing the Bryn Mawr post-bac. Passions. My fun passion is perfecting the PBL snack. I'm very sad the current first years have not gotten to participate in this because I had an ongoing rivalry with several classmates on who could make the best one. And my medical passion is the role of physician as advocate.
Yeah, awesome. Jess maybe just hopped off, but if Jess wants to come back on and introduce themselves, otherwise we'll come back to them in a sec. Awesome. Hey, Jess.
Okay, so I'm going to guess me. Hey, everyone. My name is Jess Hubert.
I am a third year. I'm from Chicago. I went to undergrad at Oberlin College in Ohio, about 45 minutes from Cleveland. I took 2 gap years off before coming to medical school. I wasn't doing anything in particular. I studied for the MCAT and held down some different jobs, relaxed. And my passions here, I guess, academically or career-wise, I'm really invested in transgender healthcare, particularly hoping to learn more about gender-affirming surgeries in the next year. Otherwise, I really like watching football. I like reading. I like grilling, just your basic stuff.
Awesome. Thanks. Thank you all for being here. So third year is obviously crazy. It's a really different gear than second year. In so many ways, it's more challenging, and in so many ways, it's so much more rewarding and liberating. So I don't know if you guys can speak a little bit to what that transition from second into third year was like for you. I know ours was a little weird. What are some things that were really important for you to know in that first clerkship? And maybe Mariah, you can lead us off.
Sure. I worked for a time prior to medical school, and in a way, coming to third year was like coming home. I showed up in the morning, I had jobs to do, I knew my role in my clerkships, and I would do that role, I would get good feedback. It was also so gratifying to finally be working full-time with patients again. It's why I came here. And in the first couple of years, it was sometimes a struggle to have that be such a small part of my life, even with primary care clerkship being so central to what I enjoyed about the first 2 years. And then on top of that, you're still making time in the evenings to study. I would say if I had one piece of advice to give myself going back to the very beginning of third year, it would be to really take patients as learning opportunities for their pathological processes. I still remember some diagnoses I've seen just very linked to the people who had them. And it's so nice to have that mental Rolodex. And I wish I'd done that a little more actively early in my third year. So I have that as a reference.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to learn, right? Emily, I know that you pretty much came straight through from undergrad, right? So third year in some ways is kind of like your first job. What has it been like?
Yeah, so I think it was definitely an adjustment learning how to apply the knowledge that like coming right after step 1, you have like a very strong clinical base and you know all of the facts and you know what the information is. But I think learning how to apply it and also trusting the fact that you don't have to know everything. And a lot of it, like a lot of the learning comes while you're being asked questions is definitely an adjustment. But I think it's a lot more rewarding and it's fun to learn from patients rather than from like books and teachers. So I've really, really liked it. And I think this has been easily the best year so far.
Yeah, I agree. Emily and I were on a team last week together. It was a joy. Third year comes with a lot of that gratifying part. It's also super challenging because all of a sudden the expectations and the way that you're being evaluated become so much more subjective. And like some days you're going to show up to a team every day on a new team. You're like, oh my goodness, what do they expect from me? Do they want to know the creatinine? Do they not want to know? How do you manage that uncertainty and how do you manage like dealing with those interpersonal aspects of third year, which are like super important? Maybe Spencer, you can lead us off on that one.
What a great question, Christian. Yeah, I think it is tough. It is definitely, it's like the beginning of your this career where you're being evaluated a lot, right? Like I think even that continues through our residency and if you continue on to do academic medicine. But I think one thing I found to be really helpful, and we were talking about this when you came over, I think that was like 2 months ago, really is to focus on the patients. I think what I've found is there are so many opportunities to advocate for the patients while you're on the floors. Because everybody's so busy all the time. And if you really focus on the patients and really try to provide the best care possible, people see that and people are going to write that in your evals. It's not all of those moments are going to be seen. And if you do these things out of the desire to be seen, I I think it kind of fires back a little bit, because like the reality is everybody's smart on the floors. Everybody knows how to read dynamics. Everybody knows what's going on. But if you're genuine and you just keep going, you just keep doing what's right for the patients, I think people see that. And more often than not, that's going to show up in your evals. But it is hard. It's definitely a transition.
Yeah, I mean, like in so many ways, it's like keep your head down and work hard and do like all the right things, for the right reasons, right? It's hard to do that constantly for a year, and third year is long. It feels long because it starts in June-ish, and ends in June-ish, and there's not a lot as much in vacation in there. How have you guys managed doing the self-care thing? It's changed a lot with COVID. It's changed a lot with third year schedules. How do you manage you came into round this morning and you have a call shift this afternoon and it's Sunday? What do you do with that? And maybe Philip, you can talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point that Christian brings up, and I'm a very big advocate for wellness, because this process is very stressful, as we all imagine, but at the end of the day, you still have an obligation to yourself to take care of yourself mentally, physically. And I think just the things that make you happy, just keep doing them. If you like reading, go read. Instead of reading a textbook, go read a book that you have on your shelf. If you like hiking, go hiking. There's a ton of trails in Rochester that you can go when it's really nice out. If you love, I don't know, like garbage play, which I imagine you soon all will. There's a ton of garbage places you can go toward. It's really doing the things you do that make you happy. Obviously with COVID, like social distancing, respecting CDC guidelines and such, but spending time with friends, family, all the things that make you happy and sane, keep doing them, because at the end of the day, you want to be at your best mentally, and just doing the things that make you happy will get you there.
Yeah, definitely. Third year is also a year about like figuring out who you want to be and what you want to do in the world, and it happens really quickly, way faster than you thought it would. Jess, I know you've come into medicine with a lot of passion for trans health for a long time. Did you go through a process of decision making about what specialty you want to go into this year? How did you figure that out this year?
Yeah, so everyone's process is different. When I first came in to medical school, I didn't really have too much of an idea of what I wanted to do. I was thinking something more primary care. That turned out to just not be for me. And I think in third year, it's beneficial because you get exposed to so many different things. And having not liked primary care as much as I thought I would, I was wondering if surgery would be something that I was more interested in. And for your surgery rotation here, you essentially get to choose either a subspecialty or general surgery, and you stick with it for all 6 weeks. That'll vary based on medical school. So prior to third year, a friend's fiance had suggested I look into plastic surgery for reasons outside of transgender healthcare and gender affirming surgeries. It was for something different. So I'd been looking into that a little bit through an academic research lens. And so when it came time to choose, or you don't really get to choose, you submit a rank list. When it came time to submit our rank list for where we wanted to be placed for our 6 weeks of surgery, I ranked plastic surgery as number one, hoping to get a better feel for the field. And it ended up being an incredible decision for me. I got to spend 6 weeks with the department. I ended up loving the OR. I feel so at home when I scrub in. It just feels so natural and it's so much fun, and I love doing it. So that kind of tipped me off that I think surgery is for me. And then actually having been able to spend 6 weeks with the plastics department, I got to see the full range of procedures that they do. I did get to engage in some gender affirming care. And so really it was just kind of having these inclinations, these hints early on that, maybe I would like this, maybe I would like that, and then making decisions for myself that allowed me exposure to certain things, experiencing certain things, and then having that confirmation that, yeah, I really do enjoy this. I really do like this. And that continues on throughout third year. Obviously, you're going to do a lot of different rotations, and I have done other things where it's like, I really enjoy this as well. So it's it's just experiencing things, saying that was for me, that wasn't for me. I could do this as a career. I couldn't do this as a career. And so having done that surgery rotation, I was really happy with it. And that's kind of how I began to form what I think I want to do moving forward.
Third year is so weird because we don't see each other very often because our lives are crazy, and it's so cool to hear y'all's journey through like how people have such emotional journeys through what they want to choose. I know Mariah had a really emotional journey around choosing, and is also going into a surgical situation. And Jess brought up the academic research track. Mariah, are you planning on doing research for a year? Is that true? Can you talk a little bit about how that decision went and what that looks like the year that you're taking out?
Yeah, of course. So my story actually echoes Jess's in quite some ways. I came in also thinking about pediatrics, primary care, maybe physical medicine and rehabilitation, and walked out of the first OR the first day I went for my surgery rotation and texted a friend and I said, oh crap, I think I have to do this. For me, mentorship was also a really big part of that decision. I don't come from a family of physicians, and so I had a very specific mental image of what a physician looked like. And I'm a former social worker who loves talking about feelings and being a physician advocate, and that was not what a surgeon was to me. But I had modeled for me surgeons who were able to keep with their passions, to live the lives they wanted to live, and to do work that was really existentially meaningful for them. So I had a wonderful relationship with the preceptor I worked with primarily on my surgical oncology placement, who connected me with somebody doing research specifically in patient-centered outcomes in colorectal surgeries. So working with people who've had major life-changing abdominal surgeries for cancer, and then saying, okay, what matters to these patients 1 month, 1 year 10 years down the road. So I was awarded an academic research track position for next year. I'll be taking a year out and doing a fellowship to further those outcomes and also to place them in hospital reimbursement and formal evaluation systems at Strong, which I'm really excited about.
I love that. I mean, I think that really has a hallmark of research that is both connected to what you're passionate about and has like real tangible outcomes that you can measure, and you're able to justify getting funding for it, right? So like this is what makes research effective, I think, is when it's something you're really truly passionate about and has real like applicability in a broader way. So I did want to take a sec just to talk about what the academic research track is and kind of what students take year outs. About 20% of students at our school take a year out to do research. They can either do it between second and third and fourth, or some people might do research after fourth year before their internship as well. The ART, the academic research track, is one form of funding for a year out. We also have the Leviton Global Fellowship, which is another way to fund a year out, which would focus on global health. There are other ways to fund years out, and it is competitive, but mostly everybody who wants to do a year out finds a way to do a year out. And that goes to a theme that's come up a lot in the last hour, which is that people here want to mentor you and they really want you to be successful. And I really I'm so happy for you guys. I can't stop this year without giving the medicine people a little bit of love. So maybe Emily and Spencer specifically, and Philip, I don't know what you're doing, but can you guys talk about how you chose to go into medicine and med peds? Maybe Emily, you want to start?
Sure. So I've always had a sense that I want something diverse and I want some kind of combination of long-term patient continuity and some kind of inpatient care. So I liked GI a long time before I liked internal medicine. So I was always interested in that since actually high school, which is crazy. And I loved my internal medicine clerkship a lot. So I think that's definitely the right place for me. And something that I really enjoyed was how complex the patients are and how you simultaneously have to think about their care as a whole. And for some patients, that's only 1 or 2 problems, but sometimes that's something more like 10. And I think it really, really tests your clinical reasoning and your critical thinking in terms of being able to think about all of those things at once and how they play into someone's care. So I think medicine's a really great field.
Totally biased. I'm going to medicine too. Spencer, do you want to talk about med-peds a little bit? Interesting to shelf or to fence it across the age ranges.
Yeah, so medicine pediatrics is the combined residency that is 4 years. So medicine's 3, pediatrics is 3, together is 4. And actually, Rochester was among the first programs to start this residency program in the country. And we are ranked #1 for this residency. And I love MedPeds because I love taking care of everyone. I absolutely love medicine, but I also can't just see myself not taking care of kids. And I think the cool part about MedPeds is I feel like it's kind of like being bilingual. Being able to speak 2 languages. You don't just get to really understand the medicine of one field, but also in terms of healthcare delivery, in terms of how things are done. And so you kind of always have this extra bag of tricks that you can pull. When you're on medicine, you can say, well, in pediatrics, we do this, or when you're on peds, you can do vice versa. And I think the cool thing about being bilingual, which I am, is that you kind of start to understand your language a lot better. Because you see the differences and the similarities between how that language is constructed with the grammar and so forth. And I think it's true with people who are MedPeds trained. And if you start rotations with our MedPeds residents here, you realize they're just, I mean, I'm biased too, but they're just like the smartest, the most fun and adventurous people. So I am MedPeds 100%.
Yeah, I love that specialty. Philip, do you want to give us the last word? Give me 20 seconds. Any advice? What are you choosing to do?
For life or from a third year?
Anything. I'll take anything, Philip.
I mean, I think you'll realize as you go through third year, you really do find what you get up and want to do. Like Jess mentioned that when they were in the OR, like that, it felt natural. And I think for some people, you'll find what you feel most natural as you kind of see what you want to do versus what you don't want to do. And I think most importantly, you're going to see how much medicine is going to impact what life you want to live outside of the hospital, because that's also a thing, whether or not you want to have a family, whether or not you want to teach, whether or not you want to do whatever, and I think that comes, apparent pretty early on about, what life do you want to live in the future? Because medicine is, we're not only people who are doctors, we do other things in life.
Yeah, definitely. And when we're residents, it's a job, right? So work-life balance is actually something we need to think about. Thank you so much, guys. It's really wonderful to see your faces. I will see you guys soon. Good luck. We're going to move on to the 4th years here. I'm really excited. I think we have a couple of wonderful 4th years here. Michelle, Scott, Benjamin, Chance, and then Jessica are all here. So what we've been doing is I've been trying to pose a question to one of you guys, and then anyone else can just jump in afterwards if they have something else to say. There are questions coming through the chat every once in a while. And then I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves. So if you could tell me where you're from, where you went to undergrad, what your pathway to medicine looked like, and then something you're passionate about. It could be medical or non-medical, either way. So Chance, why don't we start with you?
Hey everybody, I'm Chance. I'm at a hotel right now, so sorry if it's sort of noisy. I'm looking for housing right now to start residency in family medicine. I'm from New Mexico, which is where I'll be doing residency. And I am passionate about music and musical theater.
Yes. Awesome. Jessica, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'm Jess. I am originally from the greater Boston area. I went to undergrad at Colorado College. I worked for 4 years before I went to medical school, 2 years in community organizing. And then when I realized I wanted to go to medical school, I worked as a clinic assistant for 2 years. And during the pandemic, I've become really into throwing pottery, like on a wheel, which my friends refer to as clazy.
That's great. Scott, do you want to go next?
Hi everyone, I'm Scott. Originally from Cleveland, but did my undergrad here in Rochester and then stayed around to do my MD PhD here. So I've been here for almost 14 years. And I can say that Rochester is a city that's very easy to fall in love with. I'm going to be going to the Ohio State University for internal medicine residency, doing a physician scientist training program there. So I'll do 2 years of internal medicine, then go into HEMONC. So if folks that have questions about research, definitely reach out to me and I'll throw my email in the chat in a little bit. And what brought me to medicine was probably first and foremost genetics, and then figuring out where I wanted to best apply that to patient care, which turned out to be oncology.
Awesome. Michelle, do you want to go next? Michelle, do you want to introduce you? Oh, there you are. Perfect.
Sure. Hey guys, I'm Michelle. I'm also, oh yeah. I apologize. I'm on my phone right now. But I also am a fourth year. I matched into Med Peds. Originally, it's just the ball. So I just got done watching some softball, which is why I'm in the car. And I still coach even during med school and hope to continue coaching during residency. We'll see how time allows for that. And then what brought me to medicine in the first place was passion for sort of like children and young adults and their health. So kind of makes sense as a softball coach transitioning into residency. So I don't know what my future will be after that, but I'm looking forward to finding that out. So
that's so exciting. Ben, take us out.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben. I'm a native Rochesterian. I went to a small liberal arts college down the street from the med school called St. John Fisher College. I took 5 years off after high school to join the military, and I was a medic in the military. It's kind of a long route how I ended up joining the military, but that kind of is what got me down the med school pathway. And passion, right now I'm really excited about residency. I think of medicine as kind of, it's a job, but it's also like a calling, and kind of excited to see what this next step's about. That's kind of what I'm passionate about at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you guys are really, this is such an exciting time. You're planning what your lives are going to look like for the next 3 to 10 years. What are you guys most nervous about going into residency, or if there are like things that you are really proud in terms of the way that you feel prepared to go residency, how this year has prepared you? How are you feeling? And maybe Jess, you can go first.
Well, the secret is that I'm on my year out, so I haven't applied to residency yet.
I have a specific question for you, Jess.
This question to anyone else.
Great. I have a question for you after. I'm sorry. Scott, go for it.
Yeah, what I'm nervous about is going into my intern year and having to do critical care, which is part of the reason why I did an elective and I'm currently working in the SICU, the Surgical Intensive Care Unit. And what I'm proud of is how much I'm holding my own in an environment where we take care of really sick patients. And I'm lucky to have both my AD and a really great attending in that setting where I'm learning all the ropes in the most safe and welcoming way possible.
Yeah, I've seen your team rounding. You guys are a stellar team. I really am jealous. I wish I could be on it with you guys. Maybe next year. How about Chance? Do you have any things that you're anxious about moving into internship, or things you're proud that you've accomplished in the last year?
Yeah, I think I'm nervous about sort of the step up in responsibility. You see a certain number of patients as a sub-intern or as a third year in medical school, but you see more patients as an intern, and you're also fielding phone calls from your outpatient clinic and things like that. So that'll be kind of a different level. But I think I'm really proud of the job that Rochester has done, preparing me to think about patients as whole people and think beyond sort of the minute details of inpatient care. And I think that's going to be really important no matter where we end up going. And Rochester graduates are always well prepared for that.
Yeah, I think we're known for being able to connect with our patients well, and remembering that might be the first thing you need to do when you walk into a room with a patient, right? Is attend to them first, and then you could have the medical conversation. So fourth year is like, I'm really anxious about this personally, but the scheduling of fourth year seems really challenging. The way that interviews worked seemed really challenging for you guys. Can you guys talk a little bit about what that year was like for you? How did you navigate the match process while also trying to get some more clinical experience in the hospital? And maybe Michelle, if you're there, you can start for us.
Yeah, so I think it was certainly a challenge, number one. I think what was helpful for me was that I happened to have been on my emergency medicine rotation. And so I knew exactly when my shifts were going to be, which was really nice. The clerkship was super well organized. We knew exactly when our shifts were going to be, and I could like try and plug in my interviews around my shifts, which was really nice. And then like while I was on my shifts, the residents and the attendings were like very understanding and were like, you know, if you need to check your email or if you need to return phone calls, like for interviews, like we totally get it. So I felt like they were definitely like flexible and helpful. And then I was also able to like make my schedule so that I had a couple, so that I had a couple of weeks off also during that time, where I tried to like pack as many interviews during that time as I possibly could. And I like worked with my advisory dean to try to make that happen. And she was, again, like very helpful. So like, beyond that, I just, you know, just felt super well supported by everybody. So, and then the like virtual interview process, we got a lot of assistance from the like Office of Curriculum or Student Services had like sent out all of these great like Zoom tips for how to like optimize your interview environment. And so my advisory dean was also additionally helpful, you know, and kind of like making sure we had the resources that we needed to feel supported in that, which I'm sure all of you listening in have also experienced the virtual interview environment as well. So I couldn't have thought of different, like more ways to have felt more supported throughout that process. So yeah, I just, as wild as it was for everybody, I was glad that I was at Rochester.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the advisory deans. I mean, I think our advising system here is super robust. And I think in fourth year, there really is a team of people behind you trying to figure out how to get you into the situation that's going to best match what you want to do and who you want to be. Do you guys, anyone have experiences from it with advising here or with support, maybe from a specific mentor or from a department that you felt like was really formative in the last 4 years, even anytime in the last 4 years? And maybe Ben, you can take this if you have a thought.
Yeah, sure. So speaking about the advisory deans, I have Dr. Kojo, and I've really appreciated her input. I think there's always this thought like, well, she's writing your dean's letter at some point, so like how much can you really tell them what you're thinking? But I just decided that I wasn't going to worry about that, and I was just going to use her as like a confidant. And she's given me a lot of good advice over the last 4 years. Especially early on, I was, there's always, I think a lot of us had a bit of a crisis in first year. You're just like, the first classes are so hard and you don't do well on a test and you're like, man, do I even belong here kind of thing. And I definitely talked to her about that. I talked to her about pediatrics. And so she was just kind of a longitudinal kind of resource. As I kind of narrowed my focus, I got a lot of help going into child neurology. I got a lot of help from Dr. Josefowitz, and then more specifically, Dr. Stone. Dr. J is like kind of more broad kind of advice about careers in neurology, but Dr. Stone really helped me make a lot of decisions about getting into child neurology, and then how do I apply and like all that stuff. So there's been a lot of resources in the school, but I'm from the area and I have a lot of people in my life that have been like investing in me for a really long time in the area. So I tended to lean on them too.
Totally. I think it's cool to note, right? Dr. Stone is the leader, or whatever it's called, the program director of the neurology clerkship. Dr. J was the course director for MBB for many years, the neuro course, right? These are people, this is a course with 100 people in it, and you can go up to the person who's leading the course and they're willing to go be your mentor, right? They're willing to have a conversation with you, sit down and have a meeting. And I think that's true of every single faculty member that I've had like those experiences with. People are really open to that. What advice do you guys have for the first years coming in? I know that you guys are really forward looking now, but look back 4 years. What do you guys wish that you'd known, wish that you hadn't known before coming into medical school or throughout this process? Jess, I will now let you start this time because you certainly have wisdom on this.
I think the taking your time is really important. So I'm on a year out, which I originally planned to be in Santiago, Chile, and instead zoomed to Santiago, Chile for the past year in Rochester. And I had also taken 4 years to work before coming to medical school. And so I'm certainly not the youngest person in our class, but I think taking this additional year has been so valuable for me. It's really helped me kind of create different versions of what my life could look like after medical school, and then be able to determine which versions of that I do or don't like, and versions where I'm only working with quantitative data and the data analysis program's data is not a successful plan for me. But when that's mixed with clinical time and some time working on advocacy and talking to the patients that data came from, then it's like a really good plan. So the year out was a reason that I came to this school, and has continued to be a really good confirmation of my decision.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else have thoughts that they want to share? Scott, yeah.
So it was, I'm looking back 9 years now to think about what happened in first year. And what I'll tell you is that you're going to be a different person. You're going to be a different person by the time you're fourth year. And so just allow for growth and allow for change, because it's a really formative time. You're going to be learning from some of the most, bright and caring people that you'll learn from in your entire life. And not always doctors. For example, Maggie, who's a JD, Margie, who's a JD who teaches us bioethics here, is one of the most incredible people I know, and just so warm and humble and lovely, and has changed who I am, not only as a provider in the future, but as a person. So look forward to being a different person than who you came in as a first year.
Yeah, Margie Shaw is a JD who works in our medical humanities department and is involved with a lot of the different medical humanities parts of the curriculum that are now integrated over the 4 years. And I would agree, Scott. She's really one of the most formative thinkers that has influenced our education in the last 4 years. I think we're almost out of time. Can we go around and maybe just give any parting thoughts that you have? Or any thoughts about Rochester that you want to share? I know some of you are staying here and some are leaving, but things that you love and things that you think the applicants should hear before the end of the day. Chance, why don't we start with you?
Sure. So I hope you guys have had a good time throughout the day. I think one thing I wanted to think about throughout my time in medical school was that the goal is to learn really good medicine to serve your patients in the future. And even on the days that are rough, that's kind of the perspective to keep. And it's a fun journey.
Thanks. Ben, do you want to go?
Sure. Just from the perspective, you're all here at Second Look. Maybe some of you are deciding to come or have already coming. And I totally support this medical school. It really is a good school with good people, not just students, but also the administration and stuff. And I'm not trying to flatter anyone. I think it's a good program led by good people.
Awesome. Michelle, do you have any quick words?
Yeah, I think one of the big reasons why I ranked Rochester very, very highly at the end of things was the fact that even though they didn't have, in the Med Peds residency program, for example, they didn't have the exact track, like academic track that I was hoping for or looking for. However, what they have shown over the past several years, and I think this applies not only to the Med-Peds program, but to the med school as well, because this has been my experience in the med school, is that if it doesn't exist, they will make it happen. Like if what you want to do doesn't currently exist, someone will be there to support you in blazing your own trail and like making that happen for you and for med students behind you. So that's my parting thought.
Totally agree. Scott, do you have anything?
When you get here, go to the public market. Just eat all of the amazing food that Rochester has to offer. For a city of our size, we have way better food than we deserve. So go and explore, get outside of the Med Center, and enjoy all that Rochester has to offer.
It's worth it to go early before 8 a.m. Yes, Jess.
Scott stole mine because I ate pierogies there this morning. But in addition, I would say, I think for me, a huge thing about this medical school is the size of it, that I know the faces of all my classmates, that I saw them on a regular basis. And I think that human connection, whether it's a lifelong friend or just someone that you're really stoked to see in the hallway during a rotation, to like see another familiar face, was so essential to me for remaining a human who wanted to be a doctor still at the end of the day. And I think that has been such an important part for me in being here.
Yeah, or I mean, I think my peers are the most important. Like, they're the support structure, right? They're the ones that are going through it together. I'm so proud of how much we've all grown. Anyways, thank you so much for being here, guys. I really, really appreciate you guys taking the time. And that is kind of the end of this session, but we are going to have a couple of logistical things that are going to come up in this same link in just a couple of minutes. So we're going to take a moment to just kind of reset in this room. And then I think that Pat, Alicia, and Dr. Nobe will have a couple of things to say just to address some logistical questions that you guys have had over the last day. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming, and it's a long 90 minutes, but it's been really a pleasure. Have a good afternoon, guys.